Hello, and welcome everyone to the Mapp webinar joined by Forrester. This webinar is about the ROI of insight-led marketing and how to measure and maximize it. Now, this deep customer understanding is essential to create meaningful customer experiences, and there's plenty of technologies out there that help you deliver this. But we do find that some marketers are still struggling to get the most value of their marketing technology spend. My name is Rick, or Richard Montevilla, and I'm joined by Rusty Warner, Vice President and Principal Analyst at Forrester, as well as Corey McNair, Senior Consultant for the Total Economic Impact at Forrester. Now, before we go into the bulk of the content and talk about how do you quantify the ROI and how do you get the most out of your marketing technology spend, I just wanted to set the scene about the situation that many of us marketers are finding ourselves in, and that is this kind of cost of doing business crisis. Now, first of all, it's not going to come as a surprise to anyone. The consumer confidence is at record low. You know, we've been looking at the consumer confidence indexes from the US markets, EU markets, and UK markets as well. This kind of consumer confidence index kind of shows how consumers rate their current personal financial situation, and also where they think that they're going to be in the short term as well as in the long term as well. And what most of these indexes are showing that it is at record low. Again, no particular surprises here. In fact, in one of the reports, I've seen that it says the UK consumer confidence is at kind of a 50-year low. Again, probably not many surprises here. You know, we all read the news. We all kind of see the latest reports. There's some extreme cases as well, right? So, you know, we don't have to focus necessarily on the extreme examples, but we have to be aware that consumers might be thinking in individual markets, in particular verticals, in a slightly kind of a different way. Again, it's probably more of a comical situation rather than kind of a scary one. I'm sure many of you use Nextdoor, just like I do myself. And I've recently seen a post locally here where a shopkeeper was verbally abused by kind of a passerby on a high street, right? Because they were putting up Christmas lights during this kind of energy crisis. Again, it's an extreme case, but I think it kind of begs to remind us that we need to be cautious about the way we kind of interact with consumers. As well as there being a cost of as well as there being a kind of consumer confidence crisis, there's also a cost of doing business crisis, which I'm sure many of you kind of have felt already in one or the other regard. And there's been many reports, you know, by kind of local chambers of commerce. You know, these reports are from UK, but it's quite similar in other regions as well, where they're saying that they do expect, you know, profitability to decrease. Most likely because of increased costs for energy and probably some of the suppliers, logistics. They expect the turnover to decrease, but also 60% are even looking to increase prices just to keep up with these challenges in profitability. And in many ways, you know, what we are finding that these strategies have shifted. You know, the previous strategies of growing at all costs, in some cases, have shifted to profit at no extra cost, right? So how can we do the same or even more with less or the same budget? And also, I just want to remind everyone that, you know, marketing doesn't necessarily have to be looked as, you know, an expense. You know, we do truly believe that marketing is an investment rather than expense. You know, and I'm sure many of you have seen a case study from, you know, a while back that's being looked at kind of at many universities and kind of business studies, you know, how Reckitt Beckinsale was able to fight recession in 2028 through actually increasing spend and even launching new product categories, right? So there's always an opportunity, you know, where there's downturn. Now, before I hand you over to Rusty to talk about, you know, how do you measure the ROI and extract the most value from cross-channel campaign management platforms? Rusty, actually, I want to sorry to put him on the spot, but we have created this content probably about 2 weeks ago, before Black Friday, before Cyber Monday, and we are seeing some reports that, you know, many retailers have actually seen probably the biggest growth they have seen before, right? You know, comparing to the prior year. Do you think that, you know, other analysts and Forrester are going to be adjusting their estimates and forecasts and recommendations for brands, with us seeing this blip in kind of an increase in consumer confidence?
Well, I think it's too early to start adjusting our predictions and our forecasts, but certainly we're taking all of those data points as input into the process so that we can keep an eye on it. As you said, lots of retailers saw numbers go up, but that wasn't the case for everybody. We also saw other things go up, like the increase in buy now and pay later. And so could be that we will still see some issues, but a little further down the road when people actually have to pay for the things that they bought during Black Friday and Cyber Monday. We also know that there are still retailers with inventory issues, as in too much inventory. And on the other hand, there are companies who have supply chain issues, and so they don't have enough inventory of what people want to buy. So I don't think we're out of the woods just yet, because we had a few good days, but certainly it's reassuring to see some of the consumer confidence rise and the spending levels rise with it.
Excellent. Thanks, Rusty. Well, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
So over to you.
Okay, well, great. Well, thanks, Rick. Well, one of the predictions that we haven't adjusted yet, but we'll certainly consider as things move forward, is our prediction that all of you who work in marketing will pay more for Martech in 2023. And we've seen spending go up over the last several years. And of course, during the pandemic, we saw a couple of lean years where spending for Martech didn't increase as much as it had done up to 2019. But we think now you'll actually be paying more for the same level of capabilities that you have already, or you'll pay more to add some capabilities than what you might have done in the past. And that's because as we come out of the pandemic, we see that vendors are beginning to specialize, and they're looking at the rate of inflation and spending, and of course focusing on what's right for their business. And then from a marketing perspective, what does that mean for you? Well, you'll have an easier time in some respects finding technology to meet a specific need, but you may have to work with more vendors. You might find that it's more of a fragmented ecosystem, which means that you'll have to integrate more. And again, all of that will carry with it a higher price tag than perhaps you've paid in the past for certain levels of capability. So if Martech's going to cost you more, where should you focus? Where can you get the most out of your Martech investments? Well, it may seem trite, but I would say you need to focus on the basics. And while there are many things marketers need to do every day, there are the three core responsibilities of any marketer. Number one, understand your customers, which is going to depend on data and insights. Number two, define a brand strategy which will win in the marketplace based on that understanding of your customers and what they need from you as a brand. And then finally, number three, deliver brand experiences every day that personify that brand strategy and live up to the promise that you make to your customers. So focus on customer understanding, brand strategy, and brand experience. And to make that more specific about what it means for how you think about Martech and where you're going to invest, with customer understanding, we know that data deprecation is beginning to impact the way we capture and use customer data and the way we deploy marketing programs. So I'll give you some tips on that in just a minute. For brand strategy, it's a matter of focusing more on the customer lifecycle. We know that marketing historically focuses on acquisition programs, but we now need to think about how marketing aligns with sales and service and other customer touch points in order to make sure that we have a customer experience strategy. And that will also begin to impact some of the MarTech investments that we make. And then finally, for brand experience, it's all about that moment that matters for the customer. So Rick and I were talking about Black Friday. It's really not a seasonal thing. It's really not, your promotional schedule or your ad calendar. It is about those moments that matter to the customer. So in a minute, we'll talk a little bit about those moments and how you can capitalize on them. So let's start with that customer understanding and where you can invest. We all know about first-party data and second-party data and third-party data, and we know that data deprecation is impacting the way we collect and use data. So whether it's operating system or mobile changes, maybe it's the walled gardens are becoming more difficult to work with. It might be legislation in your part of the world, or it might be consumers that are focusing more on enabling privacy on the different devices they use. But whatever the cause, we know that it's getting harder to use certainly second party and third party data, and in some cases, even first party data. So our recommendation would be to think about zero party data. And while I know that probably sounds like a buzzword, it's not meant to be. Zero party data is data that's owned by the customer. It's data that they will share with you willingly in return for what they perceive as value. So when you are investing in Martech, think about how your Martech can help you collect more zero party data from digital touch points, whether that's surveys or preference centers or other information. And then think about how you deploy your experiences within marketing or in other functions in a way that leverages that data to satisfy a customer requirement. And then when it comes to your brand strategy, I think it's critical that marketing doesn't just focus on promotions and acquisitions. And I work with a lot of marketers who tell me, oh no, we're getting better. You know, we're not just trying to make a product recommendation or the right discount offer. We're thinking about the right action for the customer, and we're trying to do, you know, the right offer or the right action at the right time across the right channel. I would argue that that is still very much an inside out view, where it's a marketing workflow that you're executing against instead of a next best experience, which takes an outside in view. That's where you're thinking more about the customer outcome. And you're thinking about this in longer term metrics. So you begin to think about customer lifetime value. And it's not that immediate acquisition or conversion that you should consider. It's that longer term value to the customer. And then ultimately what delivering that value for the customer will do to provide value for the brand as well. So I would encourage you to think of your brand strategy beyond marketing to all of the experiences that a customer cares about. And then finally, those moments that I mentioned. You're not going to achieve moments-based marketing with your humans alone. You will need to invest in some advanced analytics capability and artificial intelligence. And if you invest wisely in artificial intelligence, it will help you scale your capabilities beyond what your human cognitive capabilities are able to deliver. It means that you can automate a lot of those things by building AI into the digital experiences that you deliver. And that will help free up time for your humans to be more creative, to think about your strategy and to think about how to differentiate the brand in the marketplace. So I think that a critical investment in Martech will be AI-enabled tools that would let you scale your human creativity to deliver more value in those moments that matter to your customers. Now, beyond customer understanding, brand strategy, and brand experience, you've got to become more adaptive. If there's anything the pandemic and everything else going on in the world can teach us, it's about the need to make better decisions based on insights. Just like Rick and I were talking about taking some of those data points from Black Friday and mixing them into what we know about the market and inflation rates and the future, and make better insights-driven decisions. We can do scenario planning for best and worst case scenarios so that we can adjust either way moving forward. And in a way, marketing should be at the forefront of this, because marketing has all of that customer data that speaks very well when it comes to intent and making better forecasts. So a lot of businesses only make insights-driven decisions based on revenue and transactions that have already occurred. Marketing can help the organization get in front of that and become more adaptive. And that will require marketing to do, as I said earlier, they'll need to get in touch with the rest of the organization, become more collaborative, and think about customer outcomes that ultimately drive those business outcomes. And if you need more incentive to leverage data and insights to make decisions, well, these businesses that are considered more advanced in their use of insights to drive business decision making are 1.4 times more likely to uncover new revenue streams, because those insights point them in new directions. They're also 1.3 times more likely to think longer term about customer lifetime value versus just that immediate conversion or acquisition metric that you might have. And then finally, the big one here, these insights-driven businesses that achieve a level of decision-making based on analyzing their data are 1.6 times more likely to create differentiated experiences or products or services for their customers using those insights. So there's a lot of upside here to becoming more insights-driven in the way you make not only decisions about how to personalize an offer, but how you will make better business decisions. So I'm going to sum up with just a few points for you to take away, and then I'll hand it back to Rick. Number one, be more adaptive. Shift to this sense and respond mode where you're more able to use customer data and insights to make better decisions. Model different outcomes, whether they're good outcomes or bad outcomes, and look at how you can adjust based on those outcomes. And then when it comes to what you prioritize as part of what you do is marketing, think about customer experience. Remember, it's not just about acquisition, it's about the entire customer life cycle. And you need to align everything you do in marketing and every piece of communications, you need to align with your brand strategy and in a way that lets those customers know that you're on their side, especially when things are tough. And then finally, to hit upon a point that Rick made earlier, don't stop marketing. We told brands this during the pandemic. It's worth repeating now while the pandemic's not over and we have all of these other situations that exist in the world. Don't stop marketing. As counterintuitive as it may sound, it's one of those areas that you must continue to invest in so that when things get better, your customers haven't forgotten who you are and you're front of mind for them. So with that, I thank you for your time. And Rick, I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you, Rusty. I appreciate it. Before I hand you over to Corey to talk about kind of how we engaged Forrester to figure out what the ROI, effectively, or total economic impact of Mapp Cloud is, and in some of the conversations they've been having with our customers, I just want to share some of the insights of how we approach this kind of a topic of this kind of a consumer uncertainty, but also cost of doing business crisis, because effectively, in many ways, we have two types of customers that we're trying to please, right? We have the consumers or end customers, the customers that you work with. We have to make sure that their needs are addressed, through our solution, but at the same time that your kind of a business objectives are met as well. About 6 months ago, our chief customer officer kind of tasked me with this challenge. He said, Rick, how do we help our customers identify the next revenue opportunity, based on what they're doing right now? And it's not as simple as a question as it may seem initially, right? Because every customer is at a different stage of their kind of adoption of different channels, or kind of bringing this insight-led approach into their marketing ecosystem. And we've done a couple of things to kind of answer this very simple but yet difficult question. One thing is we engaged Forrester to help us better understand of where do our customers get the most value from this kind of an insight-led approach through Marketing Cloud. And secondly, we developed a methodology to help our customers kind of identify where those biggest opportunities might lie. And I'm going to talk about this methodology over the next couple of minutes. So first of all, if you take just a snapshot of the customer journey, right? We're just talking about one specific kind of a phase of the customer journey or consumer journey. And let's say this is, a consumer on a path to acquire a product. There's so many opportunities, from them discovering your brand to visiting website to adding a product to cart or checking out re-engagement. There's so many opportunities for you as a marketer to significantly enhance that journey, through some kind of for those kind of special moments, for you being able to react. But at the same time, there's so many opportunities to get things terribly wrong. And in many cases, a lot of these marketing decisions are done based on either A/B test, maybe a couple of years ago, or maybe intuition or gut feel. And what we believe at Mapp is that when you continuously do kind of a marketing based on these average tests, you will continuously get average results, right? It's really about finding those specific nuggets information and moving away from personalizing customer experiences based on kind of them being just in this cluster of customers, of high value customers, right? There's so many more opportunities to be uncovered. And when it comes to kind of identifying that one tactic, there's probably thousands of things you could be doing, right? As a marketer, listening to this webinar, you probably know what those things are that you have planned for the next 3 months or the next quarter. And there's thousands of things you could be doing to generate more profit. And right now, what we find is that the question that marketers are asking are no longer about what's next, but the real question is, what we should optimize next with the least amount of effort and investment that provides the largest uplift in revenue and profit, and does not compromise the future growth potential, right? Because you don't want to implement things or enhance certain parts of the customer experience that will actually prevent you from doing other things in the future, right? So it's a pretty kind of a complicated question that we're trying to address. And the more I thought about it, I realized that in order to answer this question, it's very important to kind of understand and measure on a regular basis various KPIs that relate to the business. So first of all, we need to look at the business KPIs, because marketing, needs to deliver value to the sales teams and to the merchandising teams and all these other teams surrounding the business, right? And ultimately, how do our efforts contribute to the overall company profit, rather than simply providing reports and dashboards on how well the campaigns are performing. Campaigns are not as important in their own right as the revenue itself, right? So it's important to measure certain types of business KPIs to be able to kind of provide internally to the teams of what is the value that we're delivering. But also, those business KPIs on their own, they give you still a very limited understanding of why those KPIs are actually working and why they're increasing, unless you start looking at certain consumer KPIs, things like lifetime value, because that helps you kind of get a better understanding of how successful are we in acquiring, nurturing, growing, kind of re-engaging our customers. And the third part is also probably just as critical, that often gets missed out in some of the marketing KPIs, and that is really about the maturity of the team, or the kind of a maturity of the business unit in terms of the ability to actually deliver against what is possible in terms of revenue. And that really gives you a better understanding of what is the kind of a most optimal setup and what is the most optimal performance potential for our team. Because just having access to certain kind of technologies, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have right now the full potential to take advantage of all these capabilities they have to offer. And here are some examples of those KPIs, right? I'm not going to go through all of them. And by the way, this KPI template, will be shared at the end of the presentation. You can tweak them and adjust them, but we highly recommend that you use kind of this methodology within your teams, so you're able to have a more kind of cohesive conversation, not only within your team, but also across teams, and possibly with your vendors and your partners as well. So the first set of KPIs that we're looking at are efficiency KPIs. That helps understand, how efficient are we kind of as a business? How efficient are we in kind of retaining and nurturing customers? And also how efficient are we in terms of our maturity? So for example, the business KPIs could be things like, how much time is my team spending creating these ad hoc reports and dashboards? Are we wasting time? Or how much on average does the team spend creating these regular campaigns, right? Can we decrease those efforts? A good consumer KPIs would be, just understanding the size of our addressable customer population, or what is our ability as a business to identify customers on site? What percentage of all these customers that come to our e-commerce store we can actually identify? Because remember, without being able to identify those customers, your personalization, automation, and segmentation efforts are kind of irrelevant, right? If you have a very small percentage of customers you can identify, the other things that you're doing are not going to be as effective. And then the maturity KPIs in efficiency category would be things like, how many users are actually fully certified, and fully trained, and also what is our overall maturity score. And again, at least in Mapp, we have a methodology around helping you understand your kind of a maturity in terms of the team's ability to kind of to execute against all these different things that are available to you. Effectiveness KPIs, again, they could be more channel specific. How well are the individual channels performing? Consumer KPIs, what's the frequency of transactions for our customers? How many customers have been active in the last 3 months? And how many new customers are we acquiring? And then on the maturity side, it's things like how many automated programs have we rolled out? How many tactics have we deployed? How many channels have we connected to, right? And we're constantly looking to improve these one step at a time. And the performance KPIs are the ones that really are the closest to the revenue and profit, right? These are the things that really matter. But again, those performance KPIs in many ways are irrelevant unless you're properly tracking your effectiveness and efficiency KPIs, because as a result, you could end up trying to improve the wrong thing, because there might be a small tweak to your efficiency that will kind of generate far bigger results than focusing just on the performance KPIs. And those are things like average basket size, on-site conversions, monthly revenue from individual channels, consumer KPIs, things like lifetime value, customer NPS, cost to acquire a customer, because again, and what we do find in many cases, those numbers are quite vague. And if you have a target around acquiring certain number of customers over the next 3 months, without really having a good handle on those costs, it'll be very hard to justify the budget or kind of launching these tactics more efficiently. And so this was our methodology, but obviously many of you watching this webinar, are probably already familiar with the Mapp Cloud insight-led customer experience proposition and how we're able to bring those insights closer to the marketing team rather than just leaving it with the analytics team and kind of and continue having these silos. In addition, also about 6 months ago, we decided that we need to do more in helping our customers optimize their kind of a profit and revenue. And what we have done recently in the latest release, we launched a revenue monitoring capability, right? So what that means is that we're looking at the expected revenue performance for your individual brand on a daily basis. And should that performance go outside of the kind of a normal expected pattern, we would then not only give you an alert to say, hey, you're probably missing some revenue here, or your revenue is shooting through the roof for a particular reason. We also do a root cause analysis, right? So we'll explain to you in a human readable language of why we think that revenue has increased. And in this case, potentially it's because the average order value has increased, and it looks like customers are adding more products in the basket, right? So it's that type of insight that helps you kind of optimize or identify opportunities, as well as also make sure you're not missing out on something, right? Because the last thing you want to do is find out 2 weeks later or a month later that your revenue is down, and then try to understand why it has happened. So this was a quick summary. And next, I'm going to hand you over to Corey McNair, who's going to talk about the total economic impact study for Mapp Cloud. Over to you, Corey.
Thanks, Rick. Hi, I'm Corey McNair, a senior consultant on Forrester's Total Economic Impact team. I've been on the team for nearly 4 years, and I led this financial analysis on MapCloud, and I'm happy to be here today to talk to you about the results. So, first, we'll cover some background on our approach to this analysis and how we developed the findings. We'll briefly discuss high level findings from the paper, review what we heard from customers that we spoke to for the study, and we'll dive deeper into some of the results that you'll see in this study. So the total economic impact methodology, it's been in use at Forrester for over 20 years. We've used it to evaluate the impact of many different technologies and solutions. So it's a very flexible framework that can be applied to a lot of different situations. It consists of four main areas. You can see the four of them right here. We look at the benefits and the costs. This is fairly straightforward. The benefits are the qualitative and quantitative impact that a solution has on the business. Meanwhile, costs are things like licensing costs or implementation costs. We also look at flexibility options for leveraging the solution in the future and any potential value that comes from those potential use cases. And we view all those through the lens of risk. So we risk adjust every category to arrive at a grounded, realistic estimate of what the total economic impact of a solution is on an organization. Now, for the study, Map commissioned Forrester to produce a business case analyzing the impact of Map Cloud across retail and CPG organizations. To arrive at our conclusions, we took a multi step approach. So we started with some due diligence. We gathered some expertise internally at Forrester, looping in our subject matter analysts like Rusty here, and we speak to subject matter analysts at the Map as well, like Rick, to learn more about the value proposition of Map Cloud and really educate ourselves on what the solution brings to the table. We then spoke to different businesses today who are using MapCloud, and we do this to really understand what their experiences have been. We were able to ask them directly, what kind of benefits have you seen? What have you gotten out of this investment? And we'll go into the details of the organizations that we spoke to in a moment, just to give you some more context of as to where our data came from. Uh, from there, we constructed a representative financial model of a composite organization. So the composite organization upon which we apply financial analysis, that is the baseline for our financial analysis. It is reflective of the customers that we spoke to, and it's critical to the study. The financial model itself, it's meant to provide a framework for which companies such as yourself can evaluate the impact that MapCloud could have on your business today. And finally, we wrote a study to summarize those findings and to present some color behind the numbers, really talk about what we heard in the interviews beyond just the financial results. And we'll get to all that in a second. And just for the record on some disclosures, this case study, it's informed by Forrester's interviews with Map's customers. Map provided introductions to its customers for interviews. However, as an independent third party, Forrester, we had full control over the interviews and content included in the case study. So we, Forrester, independently validated the value of Map Cloud. Now, for the study, we talked to interviewees from four different retailers and brands. We did this to collect information from different perspectives. You can see here, we spoke to CPG businesses operating in apparel and nutrition. And then the ranges and sizes of companies that we spoke to varied as well. And you can see this represented in the number of customers that were receiving marketing that varies from hundreds of thousands to millions. And this really just helps to give us a perspective on the range of the impact that MapCloud can have on an organization. Now, just to jump ahead to the overall impact, some of the high level results we discovered after interviewing the CPG brands and retailers and then creating a financial model included a 540% return on investment, total present value benefits reaching $4.2 million, which, when weighed against costs, creates a net present value of $3.6 million. And on the right side of your screen, you can see a quote from a customer speaking to the value of Map Cloud. And you can find more anecdotal quotes like this in the study itself after this webinar. So let's walk through how we arrived at some of those high level findings. Uh, Before adopting Map Cloud, these organizations were working on improving their marketing efforts. However, they were facing challenges with the legacy solutions with which they were using. Um, so one of the key challenges was a missing foundation for understanding their customers. Each of the interviewees spoke to challenges around collecting data on their customers. And not only that, but the data that they had collected, they struggled with connecting the dots and identifying the customers who were making the purchases, and from there, better targeting their marketing efforts as well. One of the primary stumbling blocks for these organizations was that their legacy marketing solutions either didn't support or had limited integration capabilities with their customer data platforms, their CRM systems, and or their data warehouses. As a result, this limited their ability to create accurate customer profiles and then personalize relevant marketing messaging, leading to missed business opportunities. Another key challenge was the limited capabilities with which to reach and engage customers. Interviewees' previous approach that included individual tools that they're using on an ad hoc basis with their own silos of data to send out marketing messages across individual channels like email or mobile. It made for a fractured marketing outreach that just wasn't connected, and customers they would notice this. They would receive messages, multiple emails or notifications with the same messaging. The content wasn't personalized, and the merging of this performance data too on each of these streams was difficult. So it was hard to really understand how your campaigns or marketing messaging was going. Um, for several of the customers with the legacy solutions they were using, automated messaging delivery wasn't possible either. And one of the last key the key challenges rather, was the lack of bandwidth to scale marketing efforts. So marketing teams they spent hours reviewing data to manually create customer segment lists or personas, which when they're creating these lists was prone to human error. So these segmented customer lists they had to be formatted for entry into their marketing solutions to make sure they were targeting the right customers. Meanwhile, management of the multiple marketing tools and any complex integrations around that required more manual work from the teams as well to maintain that and make sure everything is running smoothly. At the end of the day, marketers were simply losing time and focusing on their marketing efforts. So, to address each of these challenges, interviewees had the following objectives. Adopting a platform with transparent data access on the customer profile level, so they could really collect meaningful insights around their marketing efforts on all their customers. They also needed a solution that was GDPR compliant. They also sought to automize and personalize all of their messaging delivery across all of their channels. And they needed a solution that could really integrate well with their CDP, CRM systems, and their data warehouses. This ultimately led to them selecting Map Cloud to help meet these goals. Now, I mentioned the composite organization is the baseline for financial analysis. And so we understand that organizations will vary in size and scale. For this study, though, based on the interviewees' organizational demographics, as well as the challenges they faced before using MapCloud, we at Forrester made educated assumptions around the kind of ideal or average type of company that is just starting out with a MapCloud and using it. So, for the study, the composite organization that is the baseline for the analysis is a multinational retailer headquartered in Europe with physical and digital storefronts that also supports international shipping. Before adopting MapCloud, the retailer uses a digital marketing solution that has limited automation capabilities and doesn't support multi channel outreach. By adopting MapCloud, they hope to refine their marketing efforts as they collect and implement insights about their customers. Over the next few slides, I'll review the high-level findings from the total economic impact study. As a reminder, these slides are an abridged version of what you can find in the full case study, which you can see on MapCloud's website after this webinar. These are the benefits we quantified in the financial model and their results after 3 years. Among the benefits that we'll go over in more detail in a moment, increased overall engagement from more personalized messaging, increased conversions driven by more engaged customers, each generated over $1 million in value. There was also significant value driven by the increased reach of messaging and greater customer lifetime value. In addition, MapCloud helped to streamline work processes, and employees recognize time savings on that front as well. So, for the first benefit, its value from increased reach of messaging. We heard from customers that since using Map Cloud, they greatly increased the number of identified customers and the deliverability of messages to those customers. They are able to do this by mapping customer behaviors to clicks and tags across channels. Map's integration with their data repositories helped marketers to connect customer profiles or previously unidentified customers to clicks and shopper browsing. By having a better understanding of these customers, they're able to better target their marketing messaging and automate their messaging as well based on recent engagement or shopping activity, including making personalized offers or having content specific to recently viewed products or content, or even tying it to a location. So they could really implement those workflows. By better targeting this messaging with more specific details, Map helped clients to avoid having messages delivered to spam or junk folders or go ignored by customers. One interviewee, they shared that deliverability reached as high as 98 to 99% for customers. Now, in our financial analysis in year one, the composite organization identifies 10% more customers than they would have with their prior state. And from thereafter, they identify an additional 5% of customers each year. It's larger in the first year because there's a larger pool of customers that stood to be identified, and then Map helped them to identify them. Meanwhile, over that time, deliverability increases incrementally by 0.5% in year one, and then more to 1% in year two and 1.5% in year three, really showing that more messages are then being delivered to these customers that have been identified. They're being delivered and not moved to the junk or just not reaching them at all. So for our composite organization, this drives $17 million in additional revenue across 3 years, which when we apply an operating margin and risk adjustments to really ground this analysis, it results in over $800,000 in present value. So that's the value recognized today. And as a reminder, the full assumptions and calculation breakdowns, they're available for you to review in the study after this webinar. Another benefit was increased engagement from more personalized messaging. Interviewees, they measured tangible improvement in engagement around personalized messages. MapCloud was integral to stakeholders building customer segments, and audiences. They ran regular testing across channels to see what types of messaging or templates were receiving high engagement with specific market segments, as well as having a better understanding of where customer fallout was likely to occur. So with Map Cloud, customers had better oversight of workflows where their own customers weren't receiving messaging or messages were overlapping or they're emailing too much. So the users of Map Cloud just had a better understanding of how this was how their approach was working. And from there, marketers were then able to further refine their messaging. One interview at a CPG company saw an increase in open rates by as much as 20 to 45%, depending on the customer segment. Meanwhile, a retailer saw a 5% click rate improvement on their newsletter and click rate improvement overall on automated emails by 12%. For the composite organization, we saw its open rates improve 15% in year one and reaching a 25% improvement by year three. Altogether, this totals over $26 million in additional revenue across 3 years. And after applying an operating margin and risk adjustment, it results in a value of $1.3 million. So, value from increased conversions from more engaged customers. Marketers, they became smarter with their marketing efforts through Map, understanding when to be timely with automated messaging and when to follow up to encourage them to reconsider and complete a purchase. One of the CPG organizations, they said they saw between a 12 to 15% bump in successful conversions directly on cart abandonment messaging. Marketers were also able to test placement of click to purchase buttons and review customer data to specifically target them to make a purchase. Interviews, they also were able to fine tune some of their digital advertising by enabling users to incorporate first party data to review performance of advertisements through real time dashboards available in Map and adjust as needed. So, really lean on the intelligence that Map provides to fine tune their approach. Um, So in one example, if there was one form of paid advertising that was no longer effective, marketers could then engage in emails or SMS to kind of mitigate their spending to divert it away from any display ads that they saw just weren't working because of how they're able to blend it together. This helped advertisers to improve their conversion rate from 3.5% to a best case scenario of 6%. For the composite organization, we're assuming that their improvement they improve their conversion rate by 10% in year one, and that's not additive. That's to say that the conversion rate went from 2% to 2.2%. The conversion rate then improves by 20% in year three, helping the conversion rate reach 2.4%. And this results in $23 million worth of additional conversions. And after applying the operating margin and risk adjustment, over $1 million in value. Another benefit was greater customer lifetime value. So, based on the insights that they gained, marketers they fine-tuned the frequency with which they engaged with customers over a period of time. This made for more positive customer experiences where they didn't feel annoyed with being bombarded by messaging. They also appreciated that when they received messaging, it was more relevant to products that interested them, or they saw offers that were helpful for them. Organizations they also created customer segments based on the likelihood for repeat purchases. So this helped to market towards those people who are just about to buy a purchase and gently nudge them in that direction of finally converting. One retailer saw as much as a 25% increase in e-commerce sales from automated email workflows. An interviewee from a CPG organization looked at it from this angle that they decreased the number of one-time customers from 75% to 63%, or that they now had today 37% multi-time buyers. So they increased the number of people who are making multiple purchases. They said that 30% of those multi-time buyers made between 4 to 5 purchases across an 18-month period. For our composite organization, the basket size for customers increased by 5% in year one and reaches a 10% increase by year three. So they're making more multi item purchases, or they're purchasing items with a higher ticket price, or just purchasing more frequently. So that generates over $13 million in revenue across 3 years. And after we apply our operating margin and risk adjustment, over 660,000 in present value. The final benefit here that we quantified is just the productivity value that Map Cloud brings. Interviewees marketing teams they became more productive with Map Cloud, particularly in performance analysis. Map Intelligence dashboards help teams to visualize data on customers, including engagement and transaction history. The solution also provided recommendations on when to send out messages and predictions on customer churn or conversion. Meanwhile, Maps low-code templates help teams to quickly iterate on campaigns, as well as create mobile-friendly designs and overlays to product pages. Teams no longer had to cross-compare information across different silos of data. They could just focus on their strategy because of the dashboards that Map provides. Some interviews they spoke to building more complex segments and campaign workflows based on the insights that they were leveraging. For example, one retailer, they increased the number of customer triggers from 4 to 27 over the course of a year. And for our composite organization, you can see there are 7 employees at our organization working on marketing, messaging, and insights. They are 15% more productive in year one. And as they develop workflows, incorporate more templates, and become more well versed in Map Cloud, the productivity increases to 20% in year two and 25% in year three. And this represents over $320,000 in present value. Now, with TEI, total economic impact, we take a holistic approach to capturing all the benefits of solutions. So presented here is a look at the benefits that were more qualitative, that interviewees spoke to, but couldn't quite quantify or define the value of for us. One was usage of insights from Map Intelligence across all marketing efforts, and this was a huge factor influencing the adoption of Map Cloud itself. Customer insights, they're important to businesses. Just to pull from our Forrester's technographic data, um, insight-driven businesses are 8.5 times more likely than those at the beginner stage to report annual revenue growth of 20% or more. So you can really lean on those insights to drive more business. Map Intelligence, it made sharing insights across teams simplified. For example, creative choices made in advertising were based on the performance of content that customers received and how much engagement they got. Interviewees, they said they viewed insights from Map Intelligence as the starting blocks for better understanding customers and constructing more personalized web experiences beyond just email or text. The last benefit here is just uh, MapCloud helping with the diversification of marketing campaigns. Uh, Marketers, they built more diverse marketing campaigns with channel-specific workflows by making triggers more specific in their relevancy. It helped marketers assemble a click and collect journey so customers experienced a variety of touch points. Marketers could see where customers were in the purchase journey and try to engage with them on those different channels along the way. In one case, a brand was able to sync their web page pop-ups or display ads with individual newsletter subscribers based on their engagement to create more streamlined messaging experiences. This all helped to further drive business for our interviewees. And again, these are qualitative benefits that customers spoke to, but the value of which they didn't quite define for us. As you can see here in this cash flow chart, the costs for our composite organization are around $250,000 each year, while the value of the benefits climb higher and higher over that each year, which results in the 540% return on investment that you see here and a $3.6 million in net present value. And that covers it for my portion on the study itself. And now I can hand it back to you, Rick.
Excellent. Thanks, Corey. So we're going to move into the Q&A now. We still got about 9 minutes. We have some questions in the chat and also in a questions tab as well. The first question I can see here from Ana Rosa, I think all of you probably can see it as well, is the 540% ROI high? What is considered a good investment? I mean, I certainly think so. I don't know. It's probably a question for Forrester.
So I would say with our studies, particularly for marketing solutions, because there's the return that you can get on your marketing efforts can scale so high. That generally leads to a bit of a higher ROI in analysis of these kind of technologies, just because that rate of return of, depending on what kind of products you're selling, and if you're able to incrementally improve your marketing efforts, it's going to then produce a high return. So I think this is reasonably in line with other studies that we've seen in the area. So while it is high, it's kind of how it is the going rate for a lot of solutions like this.
Thank you. The second question, again, it's probably more about the methodology. So whether the ROI is calculated on turnover or profit. I don't know, Corey, if you want to just quickly elaborate on that.
Sorry, let me look at the question. Can you elaborate on that?
Is the ROI calculated on turnover or profit? So it's like, is it on revenue or is it on profit?
It's on profit, and that's really to ground the analysis in something that's as realistic as possible, and just trying to account for any factors that can influence the actual return and value that organizations are seeing.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a question from Marco. A small elephant on a table. Nice little pun there. How you manage the physical behavior of customers with physical touch points with Map? So it's a great question. So we have number of customers feeding data into Map. So obviously we don't natively track the physical touch points unless customers are using or consumers are using a mobile app. In that case, we can use our geofencing kind of location-based capabilities to track consumers. In most cases, our customers feed data to us from their point of sale systems if they're able to identify customers by providing emails or telephone numbers, and also through loyalty programs, right? So many of our customers have some sort of loyalty program, not necessarily physical cards, a loyalty program that is able to identify customers. Again, all that data is fed back to Map and allows us to kind of re-engage customers and profile them based on their physical transactions as well as digital transactions as well. But good question. And there's two more questions. There's one more question in the questions tab. So the question from Georgia: how do we get specific ROI calculation for our brand based on our maturity? So yeah, obviously, as Corey said, the TEI study was done based on a composite organization. I mean, I would appreciate that not every single customer might fit the composite organization kind of definition. So absolutely something we can do. If you engage kind of our teams, if you book a demo request, we have a number of questions that we can walk you through, and we probably would do more than that. We would kind of discuss the potential, your current maturity, the current use cases, channels that you're currently deploying. We would give you a recommendation of next tactics and improvements you should do, and then we would give you an estimate from Mapp's point of view of how much ROI we could deliver for you.
Yeah, and just to add to what you're saying there, Rick, the composite organization, that's a collection of inputs there, to kind of represent that average customer beforehand, but those can easily be swapped out with the criteria or demographics from your own organization, and the benefits that are shown there can swing around, your own organizational inputs into those tables.
Yeah, and I don't see another question come through, but I guess maybe we can elaborate more on the Marco's question. And I mean, Rusty, have you seen other ways in which kind of maybe other vendors feed the offline kind of data into the marketing cloud solutions for analytics or for engagement?
Yeah, well, I think there's two different things you can look at. One, sorry, Rick, it was telling me I'm muted, but were you hearing me okay? Okay,
Yeah.
good. So I was not muted. Good. I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. One, you can look at what you collect and capture, and it is sometimes difficult to capture data in those human-to-human interactions, but you should certainly try to do that. Or if someone is completing a survey, or they make a phone call, whether it's to complain or whether it is to thank you or because they need something, feeding all of that in from a data perspective will really help with the customer understanding. And then when it comes to then using that to better serve the customers, in addition to what you said about the app, because obviously if someone has the app and they're in the store, there are opportunities there. I think there are ways to inform other people that are part of the process. So you can inform a customer services rep of what someone has received or what they're eligible for, or maybe something that they didn't even know that they qualified for as part of the loyalty program, so that if a customer services person is talking to them, they can just remind them of that. Or certainly lots of opportunities to better align what marketing offers are available with sales, if there happen to be human salespeople in your supply chain.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely missed that. So yeah, anything on a point of sales or kind of a tablets that customer sales might use. I guess more on luxury products rather than quick consumer goods. Absolutely. Well, we have 2 minutes left. We will be sharing the kind of the strategy template that I was sharing earlier. The session has been recorded, so we'll share the recording of the session, including the TEI study. Hopefully, all of you will have a great Christmas and New Year. And Rusty, Corey, thank you so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.